knew I forgot to turn that thing off. That's enough out of you. There you are. Just the one I've been looking for. Let's go, little buddy. It's time to get you all cleaned up and get you ready for the show. Don't worry, PeeWee. We're gonna get you all cleaned up. Welcome, everyone, to the very second, I guess you'd call this the second episode of Oxleymations cleaning. Not sure exactly of the title that I'm going to give this particular series, but you get the gist. As I mentioned in a video a while back, the should I do this video, I've had the thought in my head of doing, like, you know, videos of fixing up and restoring toys and playthings and such. And I finally have a good specimen, in my opinion, to start with. And that poor unfortunate soul you've already seen throughout the little skit here at the beginning. So without further ado, I'm just going to go ahead and move the items that I'm going to need for the cleaning out of my way. At least for the moment, until I need them. And then we'll get a look at the specimen. Okay, so as you can see, our poor unfortunate soul this week is one PeeWee Herman. But not just any PeeWee Herman doll. This one is the ventriloquist puppet version of PeeWee. And as you can see, this poor little jerk, he's seen some very hardcore playtime. He's got paint missing off the back of his head. Looks like someone had scotch taped his hands at some point. I don't know why. Well, I don't know why I can't. There we go. Like someone scotch taped his hands or something. It generally looks like this poor puppet has just been rolled around in filth. Ooh, and look at his shoes. Pull up his pant legs a little bit so y'all can see it better. So for this video, we're going to work on getting PeeWee back in shape for his next big adventure. So are you ready, PeeWee? You bet. Let's get started. First thing we're going to need, if we're going to be doing a cursory cleaning, well, actually one thing we've got to do is, as much as I don't want to do this, is we've got to disrobe the poor fella. His outfit is stitched onto his body thanks to a couple little stitches right here and right down here. So I'm going to need to employ my seam ripper, which is the reason why I have my sewing kit at the ready. Although now that I think about it, my seam ripper is not actually in here, but I do have a little tiny pair of scissors that I can use for this very thing. So we're gonna cut into it with these little baby scissors. Alright, so as I was saying initially, his shirt, his suit jacket I mean, is stitched together to hold it onto his body. And I'm surprised he's still got a suit jacket considering all the rest of the wear to him. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and cut through these couple little threads right here and take that off of him so we can get a look at what he's like underneath his outfit. The one thing I'm surprised about, given the state of this puppet, is the fact that he actually does not stink, that I can tell. He doesn't really have any musty, funky smells to him. Trying to be as gentle as I can. Okay, there we go. So now we put the scissors down. Let's get your jacket off. That's the suit jacket removed, and oof. That is a lot dirtier than I thought. It's even worse when you see the light shining through it from the back. Poor PeeWee. Just set that over there. I'm sure your pants are sewed on, and they are. So I can tell you all this much. When I woke up today, I didn't think I was going to be disrobing PeeWee Herman. I'm sure it's sewn in the back. Yes, indeed. At least these stitches are easier to see. I still got his tag on him. For anyone curious, this puppet was created by Matchbox Toys back in the year 1989. Not that I think many of you will be able to read that, only because lighting and my camera both suck. Sorry, I just noticed that the seam right along his crotch area looks as though it could use some rework. Stitches are starting to come out, in other words. So his outfit is going to get washed separately. Gotta make sure I keep his top with his bottoms. Alright. Now, thankfully, it looks like the fabric on the rest of the doll is pretty good, except for this spot right here. Honestly, I was expecting there to be more stains and stuff on the rest of the doll. But one of the big things we're going to have to worry about with PeeWee here is this is a ventriloquist doll, and there's supposed to be a string that would come out the back of his head. And, well, as you can see, string's gone. So we're going to have to replace that. And then once that's done, you'll be able to yank on the cord back here and yank, 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 yank. Alright. So since the body is actually fairly clean, surprising as that may be, and we don't have to do any real washing or cleaning of that, we're just going to focus on getting his plastic parts cleaned up. And that is why we have these disinfecting wipes. Okay, so wipe number one. And where to start? Should we start with his shoes? Or should we start with his hands? I'm going to say we're going to start with his hands. His the dirtier of his two appendages. See if this is able to do anything. Well, it's starting to work. Just gotta scrub really super hard. See? There. When it used to look more like this. And also check that nastiness out. Alright, gonna keep on scrubbing and see how much of this we can get off with just Clorox wipes. Not sponsored. Okay, move to a different, cleaner portion of the wipe and just keep on going. And as you can see, after only just a few short minutes of work, that arm is looking loads better than it did before. I'll go ahead and just side by side real quick right about here, show you what it was before. Boom. See what I mean? Alright, now let's continue cleaning up his arm. Then we'll move on to the next part. Thankfully, the rest of the muck and dirt and grime on his hand is coming off a lot more easily than whatever that was that I got off of his wrists. Or his wrist, I should say. I haven't started on the other hand yet. And I'm able to just fairly easily get in there and scrub it clean. And just so y'all can get kind of an idea of how much I've done so far on just that one hand, check that nastiness out. This poor guy was probably stored in a garage somewhere, or an attic, or a barn. But he's not in an attic, garage, or barn now. The question after I get him cleaned up is, shall I keep him, or shall I try and sell him and make my money back? We shall see what happens. Alright, so there's a couple of spots between his fingers here that I'm having a little bit of trouble getting the gunk and funk out from between. So I might have to come back with a toothbrush and some soapy water and deal with that. And there's also this one spot on his thumb. Don't know how well y'all can see it, but he's got like a little bit of paint just like stuck on his thumb right there. Regardless, that's one arm down. It's got a couple little spots that I'm going to have to use something else on to take them off. One arm down, one arm to go. Alright, here we go. If y'all want to skip this step, I'll flash a timestamp on the screen right about now, and you can skip from here to that point and you'll see the next portion of the cleaning. A little progress shot for y'all. From like his wrist up to his forearm. It's basically clean now. Now for the hand. Looks like he's got some crayon or something. Looks like he tried to do his nails at some point. Don't know if well y'all can see it, but he's got some blue going on. And there's a couple spots right up here near his fingertips that I missed, but we will rectify that situation right now. And there we have it. A nice, clean pair of PeeWee Herman hands. Now, we'll move on down to the feet. Okay, We'll start with the sock portion, because that's where it looks like someone had some double-sided tape or something to keep his feet together, or to keep his pants on or something, I don't know. But we're just gonna scrub until those marks go away. Alright, the progress so far. Another little progress shot. There's the front, and there's the rest. Now there's a couple spots on these shoes where I'm probably going to have to go back in with a Q-tip or a toothbrush and clean them out more properly. Like right in here. Don't know how well y'all will be able to see this, but see that little very dark, dirty spot right there near the tongue of the shoe? That I can't get so well with these. So we'll just leave that for now and come back to it, along with his other hand and those couple of creases I can't quite get with that method. And for the time being, we will focus on getting his loafers clean. And probably also going to have to give these things a wipe down with a normal paper towel and a little bit of water, because I don't know how many of you know this out there in YouTube land, but these things, the cleaning solution in them, usually after doing intense scrubbing like I'm doing with him, will leave a bit of a sticky residue. And in order to prevent him from getting all funky and gnarly and stuff like this again, at least so soon, I'm gonna need to get that goopy glop off of there. And just like I was mentioning in those couple of corners here and here, I'm gonna need to go in along these tassels on the top of his shoe, because they've got a bunch of little details sculpted into them that have just like completely engrossed themselves, have been ingrained with dirt. Okay, now just get the sole of his shoe, and I can move on to his other foot, and then we can jump over to the head. Now then, I'm going to skip from this straight up to doing his head, because I'm sure y'all don't want to watch me taking care of his other shoe, because it's going to be much the same process and it's just going to be kind of boring for you, so be right back with the head cleaning. Alright everyone, got his other shoe basically clean, about as clean as I can get it until I do the toothbrush and soapy water method. So now, just as promised, we're going to move on to cleaning up his poor, dirty head. Always make sure you clean behind your ears, ladies and gentlemen. A bit of a fun fact for y'all. Oh wow, I didn't even notice that. The top of his head is cracked right along his hairline. Sorry, this isn't the fun fact I was going to get at, but look at that. It's like caved in right there, and then there's this crack right here. You poor puppet, what the hell happened to you? But I was going to say, the actual fun fact, if y'all go back far enough on my channel, well actually no, never mind, I can't even bring up that video because I had to remove it because it had a copyright claim on it. But I used to have a video on this channel which was a music video of sorts for the song Scatman's World. And in that video, I used a bunch of my ventriloquist puppets from my former collection, which I basically had to start from scratch because of stupid things that have happened in my life. And part of that original collection was another one of these PeeWee Herman ventriloquist puppets. Only that one was in far, far better shape. He still had the string in his head. He was very clean. As a matter of fact, when I first got him, don't mind me picking Pee-wee's nose, ladies and gentlemen. Dirt gets up there too, you know. But was in much, much better condition than this guy. And if memory serves me correctly, I wound up getting that one for a lot less than was paid for this one. Or at the very least, it was about 20 bucks cheaper. But I'm sure that's stuff that y'all aren't interested in hearing, the amount of money that a dork like me spends on collectibles. If this were a real person right now, they'd be screaming, "Ah, my eyes! My eyes! Ah, the cleaning supplies in my eyes! Ah!" Sorry for the loud clacking, but the spring or rubber band or whatever that they put inside of his head to help his mouth close is very strong. See? He's looking a lot better already. Let's see if we can't get this beauty mark off of his cheek. Almost. Let's get that thumbnail in there. Aha! No more beauty mark. All gone. Now, one thing that you should always make sure to be careful of when you're working with a piece like this, you gotta be careful around the paint. Because there's no telling if this stuff or whatever cleaner you're using could be strong enough that it could just like strip it right off and put this guy back down to bare plastic. So thankfully I had already tested a spot on the back of his head, not one of the bald spots, so I knew that this was going to be okay, but just make sure that you are careful with your cleaning of your old and potentially valuable collectibles. Now then, since we got the majority of his head clean, let's go ahead and work on his lower jaw. This cleaning show really rubs my jaw. Be quiet, Pee-wee. Very good. Your mouth sticks open. Usually this would not be a good thing, but since I'm trying to scrub his teeth and get all the gunk and stuff from the inside of his mouth, it is in fact a good thing. Now this bit I could have actually waited until a bit later on, for after I take the actions that I need to replace his pull string, because, spoiler, in order for me to get access to where the string goes to put that fishing line that we're going to use to replace his original string, I'm going to have to rip off his lower jaw. Have you ever seen such cruelty? Okay, it looks like those might not actually be bald spots. It looks like he's got something kind of been ground onto the back of his head. Boy, look at that shine. Sorry, ladies and gentlemen, I keep forgetting to look at the camera and make sure that he's still in frame. Alright, now we're going to start working on getting these scuffs off of his hair, while also being careful not to remove the paint that's supposed to be there. Now obviously this puppet is never going to be pristine brand new again, but I want to get him displayable at the very least. Believe it or not, ladies and gentlemen, I'm actually working up a sweat. See? He's already looking better already. Got off the majority of those big white scuffed paint marks. So now we just keep on keeping on Now at this point I may actually need a second one of these before I even get to these bits. So now let's work on the top of his head. Sorry, ladies and gentlemen. There we go. Alright, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to cut this here, and then I'm going to cut back to when I've begun work on getting rid of these spots. Stay tuned. Alright, as you can see, I've basically gotten the rest of his head all nice and clean. The rest of his hair, I should say. Now, as said before, as promised, I'm going to be working on getting rid of these on camera. So, watch and be amazed. Ta-da! Whew, it took a lot longer than I was expecting, and my fingers are just about worn out. Okay, so as y'all can see, PeeWee's head is looking much better. Doesn't have all those scuffs and stuff on there. He's still got some scuffs and marks on the top of his head, but comparatively, his hair is looking good. Now, as stated previously, there's a couple of spots like on his shoes. It's hard to pick up with the lighting situation currently. Like in the tassels, there's still dirt. In the sides over here, there's still dirt. On this hand, there's still some spots like right up here near the palm where I wasn't able to get the grime and gunk out of there. And there's also a couple spots in his ears that I wasn't quite able to get because, you know, these things can only do so much. So what we're going to do next is we're going to cut away. I'm going to go grab a little container of soapy water and a toothbrush, and we'll be right back, and I'll basically do the finishing touches. From this we'll move on to cleaning up his outfit, and from there we'll move on to taking care of his little string problem. Well, speaking of strings, thought y'all would find this somewhat interesting. I did, at least. When I was cleaning around the collar of his shirt, I found that someone had tied a string around him, and it had somehow worked its way down, way down into the area right down here. Y'all probably can't see, in the flange around his neck. I'm guessing at some point that someone had a price tag around him, or probably some weirdo had him displayed hanging up by his neck or something. So what we're going to do real quick before I cut away is I am going to take care of that string right about now. There. No more random strings around your neck, PeeWee. Now then, gonna snip right on through to the next clip. That was a weird transition, but whatever, we're going with it, and go. Alright, ladies, gentlemen, boys, girls, and everyone else, we're back. Got a toothbrush, got a nice little bowl of soapy water, got a nice little bowl of clean rinsing water, and so let the cleaning continue. To start off with, I'm going to go for the easier of the parts that need a little extra cleaning. So I'm just going to take the brush and go dip, dip, dip into the soapy water and give his hand a quick little scrub in those hard to reach areas. Take care of those fingernails, give them a mani-pedi. Oh, my stars and garters, Mr. Herman. I thought you were great in your great adventure, you know? And I've yet to see your video, your movie on the Netflix, but I hear it's Great. Oops, I am so sorry, Mr. Herman. Did I hurt you? No, I didn't. Good, good, but oh my stars, your fingers are looking so fantastilix. That's a word now, Mr. Herman, I know. It's a weird one, but it is a word. Now let's go ahead and rinse off your hand. Get rid of all that nasty soot and water and stuff. Oh my stars. Looking so much better already. Not that y'all can probably tell. Okay, let me double check your other hand. Okay, there's a little bit left I can get, so whoops. Forgot I had some water on my hand, and now it just dripped onto his cloth arm. Alright, so again, a little soapy water on the brush. See the suds? And then, this time, without the cringy Looney Tunes inspired commentary. Okay, now we just dip your hand into the water, give it a quick little rinse, and we take a look. What do you think, ladies and gents? You see anything I might have missed? I highly doubt it, because he's so fair-skinned and that light is just like... Whoop. Sorry, Mr. Herman, didn't mean to drop your hand like that. Okay, his arms are good. I almost forgot to use the paper towels that I brought with me. And his hands are clean. Alright, you probably can't see it too well because of the shadows, but there's still a fair bit of muck gunk in there. So, toothbrush, and get right down inside those big, weird ears of his. There we are. Very clean. Let's get a look at that other ear. Still a fair bit of gunk in there, so second verse, same as the first. Goodness, PeeWee, it's like you haven't cleaned your ears out in 30 years. There we go. So now that his ears are cleaned out, and now that his hands are clean, let's move on to dealing with his dirty shoes. Alright, for this bit, I'm just going to lay him down on my lap like this. And we'll get to scrubbing. Okay, now let's rinse off his feet in the big old bowl of water and see how they look. Doing this sort of thing, it's important to try not to get that water up on the body of the figure, because if you do, then, well, that could lead to problems down the line, stuff like mold and mildew, and those are things that you don't want to have to deal with. I got water up on his leg, and I should have said those things, getting water up on the fabric can lead to those things. It won't automatically do that, just make sure to dry this thing off, the cloth off thoroughly when you're done. Alright, let's get a good look. Looks like I still have a little bit to go in this corner right here. Okay, it looks like there's still just an itty bitty bit left in both of these, so I'm going to clean that real quick off camera, and then we'll start working on PeeWee's outfit. For this next bit, we're simply going to take a sink full of nice, warm, soapy water, and we're going to apply the dirty puppet clothes to it. You can put them in all at once, but I'm going to go one at a time just because they're such large garments. And before I do that though, I'm going to give you all a quick glimpse at just how funky and gnarly and stuff. It's like they sat PeeWee in something they shouldn't have. So we'll just drop all this in there. And you just start working it around, using your hands kind of like that, the agitator in the middle of a washing machine, you know, that big thing that sticks out in the middle. And you don't have to use gloves for doing this sort of thing. You could use your bare hands, but let's be real here. These are pretty gnarly. So I don't know about you, but I don't really want to touch them with my bare hands any more than I had to do for that skit at the beginning of this. And for this, you'll want to use just plain dish soap, warm water. Now let's pull this up. Oop. Yeah, that's still not looking very good at all. As a matter of fact, it looks like it might be stained into the fabric. I'm not sure if this is paint or mud or what. I'm starting to think it's paint. Doesn't seem like it really wants to come out. Alright, we'll let that soak for a bit longer. Oh my god. I don't know if you saw the water before I got started, but it was not this color of yellow when I began. Just goes to show you another reason why I'm using gloves. And depending on the age of the garments that you're trying to clean and the item you're working with, you'll want to be exceptionally careful, because sometimes water can actually damage the cloth. But that's for things that are like 60, 70, 100 years old, where they just, you know, the stuff that's in water nowadays would destroy it. Or for that matter, the stuff that's in soap, things that they didn't have back when those items were created. Thankfully, PeeWee was only made in the last 30-odd years, so doing this, being a little more rough with the fabric, should be okay, as long as you're not like just ripping and like jerking on it. See if letting it soak at all helped at all, or if that stuff's... No, it's still really stuck in there. I'm going to go get that toothbrush and see if I can't do anything with that. And you have to be careful with this method because you can very easily mess up the fabric. Alright. Let's see if this helps at all. And you have to be careful when doing something like this, because you are going to have to make sure you rinse the material out really well to get all the soap out. Otherwise, that's going to damage the material as well and lead to staining and color bleed and stuff. Things that are not good for this sort of thing. Okay, that's not doing anything at all. So apparently this is paint. I was hoping it wasn't, but at the same time, I'd rather it was paint than, you know, some animal's excrement. Because who knows what could have done what to poor old PeeWee while he was wherever he was all these years. So after a while of doing this agitation stuff, just moving the articles back and forth, you'll want to just give them a quick look over. Make sure that there's no rips or holes, anything like that. That'll have to be dealt with once they're finished being cleaned. And obviously one big thing to look for is if these things have a smell to them, like if they're musty or if they just smell, you know, bad. I guess that's the best way to put it. So, nope, it just smells like soapy water. And sometimes, depending on how dirty the article you're working with is, you'll have to do several sink loads of water just to make sure you got all the nastiness out, which I'm going to do just in case. So there's PeeWee's pants. Give his shirt, his suit jacket, another couple quick squishes. Little clothes washing ASMR for y'all. Okay. Like that. Give it a look over. It's got a little bit of a rip right up here where like a seam came loose. That can be easily stitched up. And it looks like, unfortunately, unless you use like some OxyClean or something, those are not going to come back to their original color so easily. Okay, so we put that there, we drain the water, and then we literally rinse and repeat. See what I did there? Another thing you'll want to be cautious of when you're doing this sort of thing is how hot you make the water. So what I usually do, our water runs exceptionally hot. Forgot to put the soap in. Look at me being a professional YouTuber. But anyway, our water gets exceptionally hot. I don't know if you can see the steam coming off of it, but you could scald yourself on that stuff because our water heater's so good. But I usually will let the water run to right about here-ish on its hottest setting. And then I will switch to the coldest setting and I will let it run to right about here-ish. And usually that'll give just about the perfect temperature for this sort of thing. Now, it's a bit hard to tell with all the soap in here, but it's right about at that point, and the water is that perfect temperature. Alright, so now that y'all can get a glimpse of what I was referring to before, okay, you see the water? See what color it is, roughly? Let's see if it turns that odd color yellow again. I'm hoping it doesn't, because that was nasty. Just what I was hoping. I wouldn't really see. See how the water's now got kind of a yellowy color to it? Apparently there is a lot of dust, and a lot of dirt and nastiness still left up inside these clothes. Which, to be fair, if you were left sitting around wearing your own clothing, only one outfit for 30 years, your clothes would probably also have a lot of dust and grime. Now, I'd recommend doing these by hand like this, because your washing machine could very well chew up and destroy this cloth. Like, these might be fine in the washer, as long as they're in there with a bunch of other stuff, but you just can't go wrong doing this by hand. Okay, straighten it out again. Not perfect. It's got some threads that are starting to show, but that'll happen. Because when the manufacturers were putting these things together, they weren't completely 100% worried about the threads and stuff on the inside. They were just worried about what this thing was going to look like on the shelf. Now, for the purposes of this video, I think these are about good. Sure, they're still stained up, like this big brown mark right here towards PeeWee's pant leg, but that's to be expected. Some little kid probably played with this guy out in the sun, out in the mud and the dirt, so that's probably just grass stains from where he got dragged around by some kid. And it looks like he's also got more of that paint on his backside of his trousers. Joyful. Alright. And it looks like he's got a big rust spot right here on the elbow of his jacket. I hope that's rust. Alright, I'm going to quickly try and see if I can't scrub that out with a little water. And then I'll move on to the next step, because I'm sure y'all are getting just a little bit bored at this point. So, be right back. Okay, for this next bit, there are several different ways you can go about doing this. We're moving on to the drying of the apparel for your puppet and or your doll or whatever you're working with. Now, the three main methods that I'm aware of are you could A, put a clothesline up, either inside your home or outside, probably recommended outside on a sunny day. You know, just leave them hanging out there until they dry in the sun. B, or 2 in this case, you could take a hairdryer and just slowly, meticulously, over, back and forth over the thing until it's completely dry, which is one of the longest methods in my personal opinion. Or you could do the method that we're going to do today, depending on what kind of cloth you're working with, the most dangerous method, putting these things through the dryer on its lowest setting. Now when I get to this point, or when you get to this point I should say, you'll want to at least put a couple of other things in there so that these things aren't just tumbling by themselves. Technically that would make it go faster, but at the same time doing it that way runs a greater risk of scorching the material, or in the worst case scenario, having the material actually shrink. Actually no, that's not the worst case scenario. The worst case is these things just getting caught on something and being unraveled, like in the cartoons. So like I said, we're going to be putting these into the dryer on its lowest setting, and we're going to see what comes of it. I've done this a couple of other times and so far it's been okay, but your results may vary. So here we go. Obviously you'll want to start off with a couple of dryer sheets. Then the articles of clothing that you'll be working with trying to dry go next. And then of course some superfluous extra like towels and stuff to help it dry and help spread out the heat. Then as stated previously, prior to this, you'll set it on your lowest setting, on your lowest heat setting. Don't know if y'all can even see me over here. And then obviously you want to make sure there's nothing in the lint trap. And you hit start. Then, as the old commercial used to say, you set it and forget it. Although technically you don't actually do that. You come back in about 20 minutes time, or you come back periodically and you check to make sure it's not getting damaged in there. But we'll see how it goes. And while this is doing its thing, I'm going to build some shelves off camera because our basement needs more of them. Cut back when the dryer's done. Alright everyone, we're back. The dryer just stopped, so we're going to take a look and see what it did to PeeWee's clothes. Hopefully it only dried them. Well, they've certainly gone up several shades from being so dark while they were wet. I'm not really feeling any wet spots. Alright, seems like his pants are ready to go. So we've got much of the same with the shirt. Seems dry. Check the pits. You always got to check the pits on your clothing, because those are usually the wet spots. That and right up here near the collar. Alright, check his pockets. Make sure they are actually dry. Oh, and here's part of what I was talking about being careful when you're cleaning these things. If you look right here, a seam has come undone a bit and it's starting to unravel. I don't know if that happened because I was washing it. I don't know if that happened in the washer. Regardless, when you get something like that, you have to make sure you keep an eye on it. And if it's possible, you have to make sure to repair it somehow. But for the purposes of what we're doing today, PeeWee's clothing are ready to go back on the doll. So let's jump back up to my office and we'll get on it. So now that PeeWee has been given the basic cleaning and his clothes have been as well, we're going to move on to one of the more complicated steps. That one being the removal of his jaw piece down here, so that we can put a new string in his head, so that way we can pull it from the back and have him go like meh, meh, meh. So for this, I'm going to need a flathead screwdriver, from what I've seen online. Thankfully, I happen to have just such a thing in my handy-dandy little toolbox down here. And there it is. So for this bit, I need to just carefully, so as not to damage the plastic, the visible plastic around his neck, Just work this in there and just keep prying around until it comes out. So here we go. Oop. Screwdriver slipped. Oh shit. Shoot. Okay, good. It went back. Sorry, I was starting to like make the plastic on the side of his head go like, alright. Maybe there's a way. I mean, there's got to be a way. Don't tell me I just warped the side of your neck. You just warped the side of my neck. I told you not to tell me that. I hate it when things aren't easy. I know this looks pretty gruesome, but it has to be done. There it is. Ta-da! There's PeeWee's lower jaw. And this is what he looks like without it. I look like a grandpa. Ah. And as you can see right down here, sticking out of his neck hole, is the original string. So we just gotta get that off of there. Technically we don't have to, but I want to. And I think I'm not going to. It looks like they super glued it onto the piece of plastic for PeeWee's lower jaw. So what we're actually going to do is just at this point, I'm going to take my fishing line, I'm going to crack it open, and we're just going to give him a new string. One thing you'll want to look out for if you decide to replace his string with fishing line is fishing line that contains lead, because apparently that's a thing. I did not know that until I was looking for the stuff and actually bought a container, brought it home, and was getting ready to use it when a friend of mine pointed out on the labeling that it said contains lead. And there's the fishing line. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to tie this to that piece inside his head. So first thing we got to do is take the string we're going to use and put a big old kink in it like this so that we can feed it into his head and be able to loop it back out the same way. I'm trying to do all this without using pliers or tweezers or anything. So to some of you at home, you may be like, why are you doing that? Why don't you just do this? That's why. Okay, so the string is inside his head. I'm going to use the screwdriver here to try and fish out the other end of it. Aha! Okay. The plastic, or the fishing line, has been officially threaded through his head. Now we do our best to tie it. Alright everyone, I'm going to cut this here and then I'll come back. Sorry about that, but just sometimes a job like this is easier to do when you're not focusing on a camera or anything like that. Regardless, I was able to get the line attached. I was able to double knot it. So now I just need to cut off the excess, which I'm about to do. Then just cut off this bit on the end here. Okay, I'm going to say about that much string. About from here to where my pinky is. Think that's going to be enough? Yeah, that's probably going to be just about enough. Now all I have to do is thread this through his head, and out that little hole in the back of his neck. Let's see if I can get this on camera. Now the string is back, and PeeWee can move his mouth again. And with little to no actual damage to the external portions of his head. Now for the part that's not for the squeamish. Gonna shove his jaw back in. Don't you hate it when your projects disagree with you? There we go. That tickled. PeeWee, don't be weird. Too late. Arg! Okay, so now that we got his mouth fixed, let's go ahead and get him dressed. Now obviously this guy's never going to be perfect again, but that's okay. Because I've decided, as I've been cleaning him and repairing him and doing all this work, that I think I'm actually just going to hold on to him. Oh, and for those not in the know, his pull string, the ring that was supposed to go on the end of it, was literally just exactly the same one you'd find on those PeeWee talking dolls. So if you can somehow come across one of those PeeWee pull rings, or, you know, just happen to have a busted PeeWee Herman talking doll, and you don't mind that it doesn't talk anymore, you can swap out the ring on that for the ring on the PeeWee. And in that same vein, you could probably just take that pull string out and use the pull string in place of using fishing line. Pardon me, as I was putting his hand through, a thread got caught on his thumb. Now, aside from a little stitch work to get his clothes back on his body the way they were intended by the manufacturer, and a little cleaning I'm going to have to do on his shoes later on, PeeWee is ready to perform once again. What do you got to say, PeeWee?
The stars at night are big and bright.
Deep in the heart of Texas.
Gee, Oxleymations. Thank you for your help. Also, ow! Why'd you hit me? Because your mouth got stuck open. Oh. Bye, everyone. This is Oxleymations, and my pal PeeWee here saying, if you like what you've seen here today, please feel free to like, comment, and subscribe. And don't forget to hit that bell icon once you are subscribed. You'll be glad you did. And with all of that happy hullabaloo out of the way, this is Oxleymations and PeeWee Herman saying cowabunga, and we'll see y'all in the next episode. Later!